So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. It's great to see so many people in the audience joining us. I'm Jessica Ellis and I'm Head of Programme Development in the 5G Testbeds and Trials Programme in DCMS. So I'll just run through a bit of housekeeping before we kick off for today. So do note that the session is recorded. So if you do happen to drop out for any reason or need to leave, we will share the recording afterwards. Throughout the webinar, your camera will be switched off and your microphone will be set to mute. And obviously this is to avoid distractions for our speakers. There's going to be an opportunity at the end for you to ask questions to the speakers. So do submit your questions throughout their presentations and the panel session later on using the Q&A box, which you'll see in the menu at the bottom of your bar. Make sure to upvote the questions that you'd like to see answered in the Q&A. And to upvote, you just need to click the thumbs up button. So today's webinar, we are here to talk about the SmartRAN Open Network Interoperability Centre, better known as SONIC. DCMS are funding the SONIC real-world test facility to look at interoperability and integration with an aim to accelerate OpenRAN adoption. SONIC's focus will be on OpenRAN's role in secure and resilient networks with a view to fostering opportunities in the UK and the aims of developing a diverse telecom supply chain. Digital Catapult and Ofcom are working together to make the shift to OpenRAN real, as well as the ability to create opportunities throughout it for businesses of all sizes. And SONIC demonstrates the UK's commitment to creating a more open 5G ecosystem, utilising OpenRAN technology to tilt towards softwareization and encourage new vendors to invest in the UK. Digital Catapult is in the unique position as a neutral partner who's able to bring together smaller OpenRAN product developers, larger businesses that can help scale, uptake, and the vendor community to collaborate in innovation in facilities like SONIC. So our objective today really is to promote awareness of SONIC, to grow positive engagement with our key audiences, as we look to shape the potential of a broader SONIC programme in the future. And the view from our speakers today and the questions from you in the audience are going to be key in broadening our understanding and engagement with our interested parties on the future of OpenRAN in the UK market. So firstly, I'd like to introduce Joe Butler, CTO of Digital Catapult.
Hi, everybody. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. Right, it's great to see everyone. Nice to see so many of you today, and thank you, Jessica, for the introduction and for chairing today. So I just wanted to start out by talking about a couple of things that you told us, actually. We've had just over 250 or so people register for the event today, which is great. I think in itself says something about the interest in this space here in the UK and SONIC. And we asked you a few simple questions in the registration process around OpenRAN timing and the opportunity, and a very large number of you answered, so thank you very much. And you're an interesting audience. We've got representation from government, obviously, but from vendors, system integrators, wireless infrastructure players and neutral hosts and operators, academia and consultants. So between you, I think your views are probably as good as anyone's, likely to be insightful. So we asked you, how long do you think it will take for OpenRAN to mature for wide-scale deployment in the UK? And as you can see, around 75% of the audience seem to think this will be within a 5-year period, with a reasonable chunk, maybe a quarter, thinking somewhere inside 3 years or so. And gratifyingly, a very small chunk saying never. And then one more question. We asked, where do you think OpenRAN will have most impact or relevance? And again, I think your responses are really interesting here also, showing most obviously the breadth in the expected cases around OpenRAN. It's not simply a story, of course, around national mobile networks, but with expectations in private networks and neutral host models, shared access networks and small cell in-building coverage. And, I'm really struck by the sort of uniformity of the distribution here. So I don't think we can, attribute anything too scientific to a couple of simple survey questions in a registration process. But I think it's interesting nonetheless. And if we follow the perspective on timing of somewhere inside the next 3 to 5 years or so, the issues and questions that need considering around deployment of OpenRAN type solutions are upon us now. You know, will the promise be realized? Where do the challenges lie in disaggregated, highly software open networks? What are the performance trade-offs? And if we expect uptake in businesses, enterprises, supply chains, and smart factories, the need for the UK to focus on national networks, but also private networks and alternative network deployments is pretty clear. And this is what we're here to talk about today, with our setup of the Sonic facility to make rapid progress in this space, and our partnership with Ofcom in this initiative. We spoke for the first time publicly about Sonic and our plans in December last year at DCMS's and the KTN's 5G supply chain diversification event. And we talked then about the considerable shift in pace that is being generated as a result of virtualization of networks, adoption of general purpose cloud compute infrastructures. And it presents a significant opportunity, both in the context of the vendor diversification landscape, but also in terms of the adoption and deployment landscape in UK businesses and industry. And I think the trend seem, if anything, to be accelerating. There's operator and cloud deals happening all the time. Just to mention a few, in February, we've seen Deutsche Telekom's T-Systems division do a cloud-first deal with Azure. We've seen ONF launching their first version of open source SD-RAN software. Sigfox migrating their IoT infrastructure to Google Cloud. Telefonica working with Mavenir and AWS to offer managed IoT connectivity for industrial, automotive, and manufacturing type applications. And operators joining with Facebook and Open Infrastructure Foundation to progress open source cloud-based mobile core software. And on top of that, obviously, all the announcements around OpenRAN itself. So clearly there's a direction of travel here around software-centric networking, with OpenRAN and edge and hybrid cloud all likely to be part of this. Questions remain, though, about openness versus closed, standardized versus proprietary type solutions, what role UK-based organizations and innovators are going to have in this, and the skills and capabilities required to succeed. And this led us to talk in December about the need for speed, for near-term insight, understanding capabilities and challenges, and facilitation in the UK ecosystem. And so we outlined our plans there for a launch of Sonic in May this year. And I'm really happy to say that you'll hear today that these plans are now really well underway. We're currently working with a number of vendors and integrators to build the core infrastructure, demonstrate a number of OpenRAN swappable chains. We're building upon our existing 5G infrastructure at the Catapult, well underway constructing an OpenRAN 5G network with nodes in our digital Catapult offices in London, Ofcom's Riverside House offices, and in 2 separate sites in Brighton, one being a concert venue. So with that, I'll hand on to Simon Saunders, Director of Emerging Technology at Ofcom, to introduce the Sonic proposition and our partnership. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Joe. Thank you, Joe, and good morning, everybody. It's great to see so many of you here and with an interest in this program. And I hope through this, we're going to encourage you to actually get in touch with us and express how you'd like to get involved yourselves in this program. It's very much something for wider participation that we'd like to encourage. So as Joe said, I'm Simon Saunders and I'm Director of Emerging and Online Technology at Ofcom. I look after Ofcom's work on network vendor diversification, including as an advisor to the Vendor Diversification Task Force. I also look after our work on long-term technology evolution, such as the really advanced technologies that we set out in our Technology Futures report in January, which could have a profound effect on UK networks And both of those roles are very relevant to Sonic. So I wanted to set out our overall role and thinking in network vendor diversification and explain why, as a result of that, we are working with Digital Catapult as partners and indeed co-funding the Sonic program alongside our DCMS colleagues. So Ofcom is, of course, the independent regulator for communication services in the UK, and we do that to make sure there are good outcomes for the people and businesses of the UK. Our means for improving the outcomes for those people and businesses is primarily through regulating the operators of those services. But we're very conscious that those operators in turn depend on a really healthy supply chain, on the vendors of equipment and software and services that support them. So it's also important to us to see healthy supply side markets as well as the provision of the services. And those healthy markets on the supply side are important from my point of view in four particular dimensions. One is networks need to be secure. They need to be trusted by the people that use them. Secondly, they need to be resilient. We need to keep the lights on in terms of those networks providing that really essential service that we all depend upon so much, particularly in the current times. And then innovation. Networks don't stand still. There are important architectural shifts, such as the softwareization, cloudification Joe mentioned, densification, edge computing, obviously the advent of 5G and so on. And an innovation doesn't always come from one place. It comes from a diverse range of different sources. And then lastly, clearly network deployers, be they operators or private networks or neutral hosts, need to be able to make good commercial choices so that their investment goes further and delivers more for the people and businesses that I talked about. All of those things, I think, are facilitated by open interoperable networks. That gives vendors an easier way of coming into operator networks, and it gives operators more choice of best of breed vendors in every element of those networks. So we need to understand industry progress towards that goal of open interoperability. And we're not only sort of passive observers in this. We have a formal duty to have regard to innovation in the way that we make regulations. And as well as understanding innovation, we also need to act to encourage and enable and facilitate that innovation so the benefits come as swiftly as possible. And Sonic fits in perfectly to that landscape. Jess did a great job of spelling out the acronym for Sonic, but what Sonic means for me is really two things. Sonic as in it's fast. We see a need for speed here, as Joe mentioned, but also we're going to make a lot of noise about it, and this is one of those events. And we're doing that because we actually want to show vendors and operators that there is an opportunity here in the UK to really accelerate this technology. Three particular things I'm hoping to see from Sonic, and we're working together with Digital Catapult to design it in that way, are as follows. So one is directly evaluating OpenRAN, not just one particular set of standards, but the whole landscape of open interoperable networks. Are the standards sufficient to deliver true open interoperability? Are vendors supporting those standards and interpreting them in a consistent way? And can they deliver outcomes from that give high performance in realistic use cases? And we do want Sonic, therefore, to represent increasingly over time the whole range of use cases. We may be starting somewhat small, but we want a roadmap to scale up to large scale deployments, including collaborating with other initiatives such as the UK Telecoms Lab and other large scale trials. Secondly, we want to enable and encourage new vendors to participate in the UK ecosystem. It is a tough road for a startup with a great new technology in mobile to get that technology embedded at scale in operator networks. And we'd like Sonic to play a role in helping to smooth that path so that innovation can come to UK networks that much faster. And thirdly, it's a testing ground for some of the longer term advanced technologies that I mentioned before. OpenRAN is really only a a step along the way in some senses that enables other technologies to come into those networks more quickly. So we're also looking for kind of elements of technology as well as entire end-to-end systems to integrate into Sonic. So with that, Sonic, we needed to build Sonic and we needed expertise to do that. And we don't have all of that expertise inside Ofcom. So Digital Catapult was really the very natural partner for us in doing that. We're therefore sort of very, very grateful for Digital Catapult in partnering with us on this. We're grateful to DCMS for helping us to fund this initiative. And we're really looking forward to launching the initiative and to getting more people involved in it. Thank you very much. Back to Jess, I think.
Thank you, Simon and Joe, for giving us that context. I'm now going to hand over to Dritin Kaleshi, who is Director of 5G Technology at Digital Catapult. Dritin's going to give a deeper insight into Sonic and its aim to go a bit more into the technology. So over to you, Dritin.
Thank you very much, Jess. Just bringing up the shared screen. Checking that everyone can see that.
Yes, that's fine.
Perfect. So good morning, everyone. And as Simon said, it's amazing to see so many of you joining us. Joe and Simon already covered that, and I'll pick up on very, very briefly on the three objectives that Simon laid out. Number one, the direct evaluation of the reality of the OpenRAN and its evolution roadmap towards a better shared understanding for the government, the regulator, and the industry of that particular evolution. The second objective that Simon mentioned is the enabling new vendors to participate in the new UK ecosystem and the role that Sonic can play as a technically funded, commercially neutral facility to enable that thing to emerge. And also looking a bit on the longer term to be a testing ground for advanced technologies in the open networks as outlined in the Tech Futures report by Ofcom from the 14th of January, to expand on other use cases and other technology developments and not just the radio access network. I'll endeavor to take you in the next 20 minutes or so on how we are going about it and to introduce the Sonic implementation up to May 2021. To pick up again from what Joe said, this is not a concept or an idea anymore. Sonic is already designed to be an open platform for vendors and system integrators who wish to participate. And we're keenly looking forward to engage with as many of you as possible. And we have moved very, very fast indeed. The project started in November. It was announced at the beginning of December, and we intend to have a fully functional operational 3 chains of OpenRAN by May 2021. One of the key reasons that we have moved so fast to build this program in the initial Sonic facility is the set of vendors that we have started to work with in this phase. And I deliberately would want to start with them. I want to refer to this amazing set of vendors and the system integrators that we are working in the first instance of Sonic. And with thanks on behalf of the whole Sonic program to every one of these particular players, and with an acknowledgement of their inputs to what we are talking about today, what we are currently doing to make the Sonic concept and the idea real, but also to the open and the enthusiastic engagement that they have had with us from the time that we discussed the idea with them, amongst many other ecosystem participants that we discussed at that time, to get into our current integration stage. So thank you very, very much. We want Sonic to engage with companies with products at different maturation stages, and you'll see today in the panel that we have effectively have a good representation of that, from products that are still under development to fully developed, ready to deploy managed solutions, and also looking to potentially different integration models and interfaces, and with different approaches to the deployment of the products going forward. We are deliberately focusing on the 5G at this stage, but the idea is to learn together with the vendors and the system integrators that we have in this phase of Sonic, as a larger team, the Sonic and the vendors, as to what goes on under the hood in the OpenRAN development at this particular stage and across all of the development stages. We have not listed here our partners and suppliers on the core environment and the common infrastructure of the digital Catapult testbeds. We currently use 4 different core networks who deserve a strong mentioning too, but we're keeping the focus deliberately on OpenRAN engagement today. So the question is, why are we picking up so strongly on interoperability and integration? In Sonic, as already mentioned by Joe and Simon, we share a firm belief that the softwareization of the network infrastructure is an unstoppable trend. And many of you will agree that the direction of the technical specifications in the broader industry and the standards supports this particular view. The side of this software-centric view makes interoperability particularly important because on one side, the implicit API interpretation in dependency on multi-vendor distributed systems makes the implementation, the verification of the implementation of these solutions particularly important. If you couple this with the speed of the development in pure software environments, that makes the interoperability the key link that makes these two processes go hand in hand together with a fast turnaround on testing and interoperability. So fundamentally for us, we see interoperability testing and implementability verification of standards and specifications as the key input into a software-driven standardization development process. And the one that, in our mind, can be seen as a lever to have an easier and a faster, potentially, input into the standardization process in a way that can be more quickly beneficial to developing and emerging vendors, as well as the established ones, of course, in the OpenRAN space. And in Sonic, we aim to build a commercially neutral, sustainable, permanent and evolving UK national capability program that uses the interoperability testing as the means to foster the emerging telecom supply chain in the UK and for the UK. We are deliberately starting, of course, with OpenRAN as a promising and reasonably specification mature technology. But it's also one of the most difficult areas in the cellular domain. At the same time, Sonic will offer the same development activity support in an end-to-end open network system in the technology development in that space in the midterm and not just in the RAN side of things. So what is Sonic? Sonic is a joint program between Digital Catapult and Ofcom to build this national capability, and it is in response to the telecom supply chain diversification objectives of the UK government as listed on the 5G diversification strategy published at the end of 2020. It is funded by the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sports, and it evolves. As it evolves, it will incorporate other standards, standardized network technologies, which will focus on multi-vendor solutions and which will require interoperability integration. It is a combination of 3 components, and each one builds on top of one another. At the bottom one, and unashamedly so, is a technical facility that has a shared common network infrastructure, which will host as a live cellular network as the first tenant in a testbed form. This infrastructure is over-provisioned to allow for multi-tenancy. It's providing both indoor and outdoor operational environments, and with a designed ability to do scaling, experimentation and testing for, including for large outdoor representative networks. The second element of this that forms the core of the Sonic program is that Sonic will become a place for collaborative peer assist testing of product and solutions during the development stage of them. Typically what people in innovation refer to technology readiness levels 5 to 7, which are outside of the research space, but they are not quite productized for selling. This will include delivery of testing programs with other vendors, equipments and software in our infrastructure, and to really engage with vendors and solution providers to test their solutions and to almost not just co-test, but potentially co-develop, in particular in terms of interfaces, towards better system integration. Last but equally important for us, it will be a center for fostering the creation and the sharing of technical development knowledge in the UK with new technology solution capabilities and with a better understanding of experimentation with business model in an open, publicly funded environment. It is one of the centers for technical deployment knowledge and sharing in the open network, and it will work through acceleration programs, broad ecosystem engagements. It will work directly with the UK 5G, as well as other core national capabilities like the UK National Telecoms Laboratory and other activities. As we said, this is not a concept. We have currently been building it. So what does it look like? So the foundation of Sonic is the testbed infrastructure to take the testing from the bench to the field with real network and real traffic conditions testing. With our engaged vendors, we are building 3 OpenRAN chain demonstrators, replacing our 5G single RAN 5G network with these 3 chains connected to our 5G testbed network operations center in London, and with separate nodes in London, Ofcom Riverside House Emerging Tech Laboratory, in Future Networks Lab at Digital Catapult in London, as well as the 2 sites that we have our 5G testbed with our 5G testbed partners in Brighton, which is Brighton Dome and Brighton Festival, concert venue, and Wired Sussex at Fusebox. This particular diagram represents the 3 main components of the facility, which we will evolve further. The common infrastructure, an SDN-enabled fully virtualized compute with high capacity interconnect and the relevant management, as well as overlaying with an expansive test and measurement platform, which is currently leveraging what Digital Catapult has. We will also build a public indoor and outdoor representative cellular network, as shown with the distribution of the RUs and the DUs in the different locations. As you see from the diagram, the centralized units are all connected in London and hosted in our network operations center, where we also host the different core networks, standalone 5G core networks that we have. And we have the ability to distribute multi-DU RU swappability in all of the different locations. Unfortunately, until now, we don't have a low latency, below 150 microsecond latency, to effectively test with a DU RU. So 1 DU, multiple RU deployments, but we firmly have the intentions to effectively build that capability if going forward. As I said, we see it very important to be able to test in a real world condition, to take products under development from the lab to the field. And in order to do this, we are leveraging the 5G testbeds. And the 5G testbed, the Digital Catapult testbed, we are very, very fortunate. And this is the second element that has allowed us to move very, very fast, because through our strategic partnerships, in particular Brighton Dome and Brighton Festival and Wired Sussex, we have access to real indoor facilities, which, for example, on the top left corner, you see the Corn Exchange in Brighton Dome and Brighton Festival, which is a 1,000 square meter indoor multi-purpose area, an exhibition and concert hall with up to 800 seats, as an example of where testing of the technology can be done in a real environment. We have done a over-provisions with the infrastructure sharing neutral hosting environment, with the ability that we can host up to 3 different vendors simultaneously on that particular environment. On the other side, this represents a very important opportunity for the industry, for the policymaker, and for the regulator to link the technology development with its potential use. In a way, what we say at the Digital Catapults is to make the invisible, the infrastructure development and the technology that very, very few people genuinely care about. They want to buy it as a service, but we want to make that the invisible visible through early testing in a proper environment and connecting it with real applications and real users. Of course, what gets us going, technical people like me, is potentially a bit more on the picture on the right, which is a partial, a 1 rack only, a view of the Digital Catapult 5G testbed core, the network operations center. For Sonic, at this stage, we are leveraging, and we will expand significantly later on, an existing £2.5 million investment that allows us to leverage the geographically distributed testbed and the infrastructure that we have. We are operating on 3.4 to 3.8 gigahertz, and also we are expanding to the shared spectrum 3.8 to 4.2 in this space. So more specifically, what are the vendors doing with us in this space? This is a diagram of the 3 OpenRAN chains with the allocation of which vendor is effectively doing. We are looking for a 5G new radio OpenRAN chain, and specifically focusing on the 3GPP 7.2 split option. The first chain that you see, the ORAN chain 1 that you see at the top, is using Benetel radio units, a very well-known name in the OpenRAN testing space, interfacing with an extremely interesting split implementation solution by Fluido and Ethernet on a FAPI interface on the previous incarnation of that, which is controlled by a centralized unit by Acceleran, who are also providing their radio intelligent controller solution and also acting as an overall system integrator. You'll hear more from Federico that is on the panel from Acceleran on this, and very, very open to ask questions on that. The chain 2 is a fully developed managed solution by Mavenir on DU, CU, and RIC, interfacing with 3 different RUs, the Fujitsu and or NEC, Benetel, and Foxconn. The key interest here in this particular deployment is to learn from deployment and testing a mature solution, and even more so when we start playing around with the swappability of the components between the 3 different chains. In chain 3 is a Radisys distributed unit and centralized unit interfacing with the Benetel and the Foxconn RUs. These are connected back to a multi-core environment that where, as you can see, we're using Open5G Core and Druid, but also we have 2 additional cores in discussions, commercial cores that will be part of the testing. The Digital Catapult and the Ofcom teams are working alongside with the 3 chains for the installation and the commissioning of this. It is part of our learning process, looking under the hood of this. It is again really satisfying to see the openness and the engagement from the cohort providers. It is effectively bodes extremely well for our work in the future, because part of the Sonic at this stage is also to test the methodology as how we can work in a commercially neutral environment with people at different stages of product development. Once the system integration is completed, we will be looking to testing swappability of components and to understand a bit better the choices made on the interface parameterization across the, effectively, as Simon mentioned, what choices vendors make on implementing the different standardized interfaces. The reports of that will be published as Sonic goes forward. If we are building and if we are going in this direction, we need to go, as everyone knows, until now in the UK, we have been primarily focusing on technology adoption, and technology adoption has been looking mostly on the performance of the systems end-to-end to support individual applications and use cases. Once you start looking further and more specifically into technology development, then the instrumentation and measurement platforms of the testbeds becomes paramount. And one of the things that we don't find easily in the existing testbeds, including ours, because it is both complex and relatively expensive, is this instrumentation. Sonic is, as I said before, unashamedly a technical facility, and with a clear focus to help companies during the development stages. And because of that, we will need to effectively build, and we are currently building, to overlay our proven testbed designs with an extensive test and measurement capability, to move away from just end-to-end performance testing of demonstrations and applications, because whilst that is sufficient for technology adoption, it is not enough for the technology development. Having said that, Sonic will build test house capabilities, but it is not going to be a commercial test house. It is not intended to provide certification, because we feel at this moment that this goes against the spirit of enabling companies to co-work together and to develop products faster in a community testing environment with technical support. Our capability, in a way, we say that we will use our capability in a peer assist and not in a peer assess or peer review or in an examination way. And the idea is how to build an end-to-end instrumentation platform that can take us from lab bench testing of wherever it is necessary for conformance, but primarily or interoperability, to field testing. And when we look at the technical engagement in Sonic, the core of it is this particular thing. It is what we are building and operating the facility for. Whilst the engagement evolves around being able to support the UK and other network technology vendors internationally that want to engage with Sonic, what we see Sonic to offer is to engage on both individual components in OpenRAN, RU, DU, CU, RIC, and RIC applications later on in terms of management, but also for subsystems like we are seeing in some of the vendors already engaged, DU, CU, and RIC integrated together with different radio units, both in a lab environment and in a field environment. We anticipate and we expect and we encourage people to engage with Sonic to co-test, and we are building Sonic with this in mind. For example, we will focus primarily on interoperability. Conformance testing is very, very often a prerequisite for interoperability testing. I need to know that you are speaking the correct syntax before I can test the meaning of what you are saying. That is fine, but we will only support a subset of compliance testing to get us to the interoperability in order to be able to graduate companies towards more interoperability testing and ready for product integration later on. We also will be looking for developing insights into the security and resilience testing. But because the mission of Sonic is to support mid-development technology companies in the UK, being able to look at the security is necessary if you are looking at the interoperability and the integration of the products. But we anticipate very, very firmly that for in-depth testing in this phase, we will collaborate and we will rely with other UK-based national capability centers that will be specialized in this particular area. The last and the key thing for Sonic is how do we work with the telecoms ecosystem? In a way, Sonic will sit between the government, working with the regulator to underpin their emerging technologies engagement, delivering a better understanding and linking and translating the technology development into the policymakers as well as on the regulator side, which of course Simon already outlined. But it's very, very much part of the telecommunication ecosystem. It is working. Sonic is working with the entire telecoms ecosystem in the UK, both UK-specific entities and global organizations. We have been engaging already with key stakeholders as we have developed the initial plan and the current Sonic project funded by the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sports, who we thank very, very much. We have also engaged with most of the vendors of products suitable for OpenRAN development. This has helped us shape until now what we are doing in terms of the technical aspects and the way to work in the project. But as we look at the longer term evolution of Sonic, we'll be spending more time with the various stakeholders and with a focus on identifying their specific challenges, and for individual stakeholders in the ecosystem, new vendors, existing vendors, network operators, network providers, system integrators, to understand their specific problems and challenges to be solved in the manageability side, in the resourcing of the products, in the ability to increase the credibility and the testing and the understanding of the deliverability of the roadmaps of the products in an open way, and leveraging this for the diversification of the supply chain objectives that the government currently have. A part of that will be to include and to use Sonic as part of the engagement with the broader ecosystem to unlock the investment in telecoms, and for Sonic to provide the evidence into that process, working with other partners. We will continue to co-develop the program and the process with the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport, and also with the UK National Telecoms Laboratory, as it was particularly mentioned in the telecom supply chain 5G diversification strategy. We are also developing that in partnership with other global organizations like the Telecom Infra Project, discussions with OpenRAN, and also with standardization development organizations like ETSI and 3GPP, where Digital Catapult is a member of, in order to ensure that there is a pathway for the learnings through the interoperability testing and implementability verification into those organizations, and to ensure that there is a strong link to UK and international to leverage and share both ways. Another point that we want to make is that neutrality in the technology and commercial terms is particularly important for Sonic, and a particular contribution coming from Sonic as Digital Catapult and Ofcom into the ecosystem, in the telecom ecosystem, including the OpenRAN development. And it is something that Sonic has at its center. We see Sonic very much adding direct value from this perspective, from the neutrality, both in technology and commercial terms, to the existing well-developed standards, both industry and commercial activities, the ORAN Alliance, TIP, ETSI, MNOs, testing, and others. As with all things that Digital Catapult does, and Ofcom in its regulatory capacity does anyway as well, we're looking for barriers and working how to help and engage to solve them together in order to accelerate the uptake of the new technology with new vendors, new products, swappability, and new business models. Finally, in the Evolve Sonic program, we want to be able to accelerate the product development cycle, identifying new products and vendors. And we will do that through ongoing discussions, outreach programs, events, and dedicated acceleration programs looking in specific areas. And for example, looking at XApp RIC-enabled applications or multi-vendor integration OSS solutions in the longer run. The product then will be integrated and tested. People that will come into Sonic, they will, to use a simple word, they will graduate towards a product testing, towards TRL 8 and 9, be ready for testing in other test centers and capabilities, including mobile network operators, network providers, and through this particular commercial neutrality, it can solve issues that other bodies cannot. It is something that we are consulting widely, and we are inviting you today to let us know your views and how we can collaborate together. Sonic is also something that is going through we are starting with OpenRAN, but it is not, the telecom diversification and softwareization doesn't happen only in the RAN space. And it was indeed a struggle for us to fit everything in this side and to give a sense of what we'll be looking at in terms of the open networking technologies, because we are only starting with the OpenRAN. Looking beyond the joke and trying to fit everything in and speaking seriously, the objective for Sonic is to help companies during this development cycle. And whilst the challenges that we have listed in this slide and in this topic will be addressed by different vendors and different initiatives and capabilities in the UK and internationally, Sonic will firmly seek to evolve to support these activities through testing in these areas for companies in this development cycle as part of the ecosystem, and in particular looking at multi-vendor interoperability testing and integration. Of course, these things will shift around, and these are the sort of things that the industry is looking at. We will effectively, what we will do at different times will depend on stakeholder engagement, market drivers and capabilities, and it will be part of our ongoing consultation with you to take this forward. To close, we are inviting everyone to become part of Sonic. It's a joint program between the Digital Catapults, will be operational in May 2021, due in part because we are working with some amazing partners, but they are the first cohort of people that we are engaging with. Sonic is independent, commercially neutral, and open for engagement in the network disaggregation solutions to everyone. Whilst it is telecommunications technology focus, we want to use the learnings that we have to provide up-to-date technical information to policymakers as well as to the regulator itself in a way that helps the UK to achieve its strategic objectives in the future open networks. And I want to thank you very much for joining us today and leading into the panel. Questions around what we have further now will be part of the panel. We are looking forward to have you involved in Sonic, and please get in touch, and you'll have you'll find the ways to get in touch with the team through through the link in this website, and also through direct means, because most of the people in the call and in the audience will know the participants and the drivers of the Sonic call. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Dritten, very much for that in-depth view on Sonic. We will move on to the panel session as discussed, and I'll be joined by Alfonso from Salnex, Stefano from Mavenir, and Frederic from Acceleran. We want to focus the discussion on what opportunities and challenge OpenRAN will bring to the UK. And I'll start off by inviting our three panel members to introduce themselves. Stefano, would you like to talk about Mavenir's involvement with OpenRAN and Sonic so far?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Jessica, and thanks for everybody for inviting us here. Yes, well, first of all, I'm Stefano Cantarelli. I'm the CMO at Mavenir, UK based. Mavenir is an end-to-end software cloud native supplier, and also in OpenRAN as a very strong driver in the last years. We have been involved in the UK with UK government, DCMS, Ofcom, and Digital Catapult for some time, and our role is, as Dritten has explained, we are a provider of OpenRAN, vRAN integrated for some of the chains. Last thing I would say really is that Mavenir is strongly focused in the mission to bring virtualization everywhere in the world, because we believe that virtualization that helps to open up the market and to boost competition, because we think competition is innovation, which I think is very much in line with what I heard from everybody here. And of course, you know, we have been strong knights holding the flag of open interfaces with the same reason, because we do really need a diversification of the supply chain worldwide, not just in the UK. The fact that we have been doing things until today in a certain way doesn't mean that in the future will have to be done in the same way. So that's what it is in a nutshell, Mavenir. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Stefano. And Alfonso, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks for the opportunity. I'm Alfonso Alvarez. I am Deputy Managing Director for Salnex in the UK. And as you probably know, Salnex UK, we are an infrastructure operator providing passive infrastructure mainly to the mobile operators and also to the enterprise market. For us, OpenRAN and Sonic is a great initiative. It's something that could unleash different business models in the future. And for us, being a neutral host, it's a very interesting way to explore new alliances, new collaborations for things like indoor coverage, in which we are very active as well. We really think that this open interfaces, new paradigm or ecosystem should also foster savings and economies that the operators will like to apply. Probably in the beginning, as with any other technology disruption, the operators were hesitant and waiting for news to happen, and let's discuss about it during the panel, but probably there's a common understanding now in the industry about the value that initiatives like OpenRAN first, maybe virtual RAN in the future, etc., should bring to the operators first, creating synergies, creating opportunities, for them to use their budgets in a smarter, in a smarter way. And as Salnex, we want to be part of that. Okay, so probably we are not as Mavenir or any other member of the initiative, a technological company aiming at manufacturing products or being part of the value chain. But as a neutral host, we really think we could be using or leveraging on these new technologies for supporting the industry, supporting our customers. And the last point is 5G is not only about MNOs, it's also about private networks, and we are also very active there. So probably OpenRAN is the right combination of new technologies, disruptive models, open interfaces, and we really think there's value there, and Sonic will lead it in the UK. Thank you.
Thank you, Alfonso. And Frederic?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to present AccelRAN here as well. I guess we are the smallest party here on the table, which I think in the context of this event, that's a good thing to say, as a few things that have been said by the first presenters is also to promote new players in the RAN market. So we appreciate that very much, to give us the stage to show off our technology and what we have done so far in promoting OpenRAN. So maybe a few words about AccelRAN, because maybe a bit less known compared to my colleagues here on the table. So we've been created back in 2013 to really focus on software for the RAN. So we're about softwareization since our inception, I would say. The team has a lot of history in the RAN space, and basically also in integration and test. So we see software as products, not just as a software stack. We see each of our components as a product on its own. We're mainly based in Belgium headquarters, but we have quite some UK links and UK development as well. So very close to the UK market. We're currently close to 40 people, and we have our software runnings in embedded system 4G, but foremost in the context of what we're talking here, designed to be containerized, cloud native, both 4G and 5G. So from the start, we have componentized our software. So for us, a very natural way of being straight to containerization, control plane, user plane separations, distributed data to fuel automation towards the RIC and the XApps are things that are embedded in our architectures. We focused a lot on the higher layers, so we certainly are not coming with an end-to-end solution. We have been seeing the advent of virtualization and openness early on. So we focused on, I would say, three things: disaggregation, intelligence, and programmability of the RAN. And that leads automatically to what we call now altogether OpenRAN. So we're very happy with that evolution. We've been part of this initiative from the start, when it was called XRAN, before it was called ORAN, and before, let's say, the last, I would say, 18 to 24 months, we get in a more mnemonics, I would say, convergence of all the initiatives that has been taking over the years. So we see really OpenRAN as a solution going forward to open up monolithic enclosed systems and adhering to cloud native technologies, IT deployment principles. And as somebody was saying earlier, we think it's unstoppable and it's unavoidable. It's a matter on how to make it work for the RAN specifically as well. We have pioneered all that in different environments. So just to finish on that, if I may, Jessica. So we're part of ONF, we're part of TIP. We have been a T company, or we are a T company also, the context of TIP and BT, where our platform has been used for developing XApps already. And we're happy to be part now of the Sonic as a next step to show end-to-end system of truly interoperable parties of the chain.
Thank you very much for outlining your involvement so far. Slightly different angles from everyone, which is great to see. So the first question that I want us all to kind of think about is who the winners are going to be with the migration to OpenRAN. You know, do we see it as new vendors, operators, governments and regulators meeting policy objectives, or mature vendors repositioning themselves in a new value chain, or all of the above? So yeah, keen to hear your views on that. Does anybody want to jump in? Stefano's go.
I can start. The answer is very easy. Everybody. We said that before. Open interfaces means more competition, and competition means innovation. And so the winner out of these will be, first of all, the users, you know, because remember, we all do these for people, right? For providing services to companies, people, you know, everybody. And of course, winner will be also companies like operators, enterprises and so on, because they will be able to leverage their businesses wherever is the direction of the business. As Frederick has mentioned before, one of the good things of competition is that you're able to introduce new vendors. I mean, innovation, it cannot be driven just by a few companies, especially when the few companies are also locking in the commercial, because we're not talking about that here, but it's a fundamental component. And open interfaces has been, a strong driver. But I also want to underline that the virtualization, which is intrinsically inside some of the solutions that we are talking here, because they're not just open, they're also virtualized, is the key future, is that ability, that agility that today a lot of the businesses in telecom don't really have, and they have been admiring some of the hyperscaler and some of the internet players, to be able to automate their business, which means everybody will win. Users will get more services more faster. Enterprises will be able to do their businesses with a different speed. Operators will be able to save money and be able to be faster to market. And finally, of course, vendors will be able to get in the market and find their niche business, because in some cases, there will not be just the, and I mentioned them, just the Ericsson or the Nokia of the world. Some of our company, including Mavenir, we are not aiming to become an Ericsson or a Nokia, not because we think is bad things by themselves, but it's just because the model in an open environment is completely different. It's about an ecosystem, boosting the ecosystem. And we believe that there will be a lot of opportunities, not only for software vendors, but also for hardware vendors. And we have been talking about, RRUs, which is one of the key components in the radio space for RAN solutions, including OpenRAN. There's always some frequencies, some specific RRUs that maybe don't have a huge volume, but it could be a big business for a small company. So that's really what my answer is in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you. Frederick, you're off mute. Oh, Alfonso as well.
Yeah, sure. No, I think as Stefano said at the beginning, it's a very broad set of winners that we should expect, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's probably digital transformation and end user that should be the final winners. But I think what is fair to say is that we see the value chain shifting in the process of going to OpenRAN, and how the puzzle will be laid again is still to be seen. But the advent of more software defined, but again, agreeing with Stefano also on the hardware, we should not forget about that. That's clearly still an essential piece of the OpenRAN. But the more we go to software defined and IT based, driven by TCO, driven by innovation or other drivers, it will have this vendor diversity emerging. I would maybe specify one role that I think is critical that might be seen as a winner, or where we need to keep an eye on is the integrator role of an OpenRAN, which should be something that is probably segregated from all the OpenRAN components as well, to keep the true ambition of OpenRAN being best of breed componentry and integration of all that into systems for specific use cases or specific go-to markets. And to keep OpenRAN alive, I think the integrator role is a very important one to understand and to figure out how they will fit in the value chain of the future in OpenRAN compared to the current RAN models.
Yeah, agree on the integrator role. Alfonso.
Difficult to add value to what my colleagues have clearly explained. I think that, technology is a mean, is not good by itself. So what we all understand as the values coming from OpenRAN and this new ecosystem, open interfaces, etc., should be doing more things with the same money. So the operators, but also private companies deploying their own networks, etc. There's also, I think, sorry, I think something happened with the microphone, which is creation of value in the UK. That should be also one of the initiatives we should pursue. And I know Sonic has this priority among the bunch of things to consider this initiative as a success. And that means all this new ecosystem should deploy opportunities for software companies, for, why not, hardware manufacturers, and I would call this reindustrialization. This is all coming with 5G, and 5G is a completely new ecosystem in terms of mobile. We are deploying different bands, we are deploying many other sites for covering the territory, but we are all thinking of 5G as a technology which will make possible new use cases in which latency is very, very low. And this is probably connected with industrialization, okay? So OpenRAN should make it possible, should reduce costs for this adoption of 5G as the killer application for, or killer technological mean for a lot of industries to transform their processes and automatically creating jobs and ensuring their future. So I think there's an angle here which is not only technology, it's not only software or hardware interface, it's value for money.
Great, thank you very much. So the next question I've got for our panel members is, why do facilities like Sonic matter to vendors, and what should they be including to accelerate OpenRAN deployments?
Well, maybe we use the same term. For me, it's quick. These initiatives are meant to explore the operability and what does it mean actually to have an OpenRAN or an open network. So it's always good to be into these initiatives, because this is not about demonstrating or showing how good you are. This is showing how it works and what are the potentials, and to show clearly to some of the organization in the government like DCMS what really you can do. I have seen it when when I have simply I've been lucky to participate in a public hearing about some of these matters, and sometimes you realize that the more ideas you bring on the table, the more people realize where the path is. So these initiatives, in my opinions, are always useful to understand really which are the direction, because as usual, we need to remember that in the telco, in the mobile and so on, it's not just about maturity of technology. We need to remember that also we need to have the maturity to be able to implement them. And sometimes this actually takes more time. In my 30 years in technology has always been much faster than to mature than the rate of the adoption of the technology itself. And believe me, I've done it as a supplier, as an operator, from fixed network to mobile network is always the same. So all these kind of initiatives are good to demonstrate how we can use these technologies, how we can take advantage, and to foster, the different path to actually create more innovation. That's really what I think.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if I can add a bit to that, I think besides the obvious fact that bringing new vendors into this equation is, of course, of benefit for a company like us, I think it definitely shows that the RAN does not need to be end-to-end, and that this integrated role that I mentioned before will be very important, and that needs support in the first phase. We're talking here about, I would say, a paradigm shift. And if you mention that sort of heavy words, you are going against a bit of the ruling market forces. And in that context, having Sonic governmental and regulatory support in a number of initiatives at the early days of such initiatives, promoting integration, promoting open interfaces, and basically promoting the fact that these open interfaces can work together is essential. I'm still hearing, or I'm hearing still now, quite pessimistic views as well in terms of the openness, and referring to IMS or even MEC as being slow progress in history. But here there is something very fundamentally different. It's driven by clouds, driven by IT principles, by virtualization principles that, as we said a few times, are unstoppable. So we need to promote that, and we firmly think that these kind of initiatives will further foster that market.
Well, again, difficult to add value to what Stefano and Frederick pinpoint. I think that, that's clear that there's a potential value for new vendors coming into this industry, and there's a new business opportunity. Also, maybe a challenge to the big vendors, but why not also an opportunity for them? And probably we are seeing how they are now moving slightly towards the potential concept. I mean, in Nokia and Ericsson. I think that what vendors should look at when they propose this new ecosystem is being key for the success of 5G as a first priority. And 5G will not be only RAN. 5G means also core, and means in the future network slicing. It means changing the whole network concept. So it's not easy for the operators, and it's perfectly understandable. It's not easy to change their mindset as well. It's not only about saving some money, it's also about changing all the technological approach and dealing with more than one supplier or more than two, which is the traditional approach, when they need to ensure a rollout in a limited timeline. I think this will be possible. The operators will accept that there's a value here, and maybe with more complicated procurement agreements with, more or many other vendors to be managed in the whole technological picture. In the end, there's a value, which is savings and more things to be done. But the main objective should be making 5G, the whole picture of 5G, possible as soon as we can. And that means the radio access network, but the next step is the core, 5G core, network slicing, virtualization. This is, I think, the real future, the real objective.
And you started to sort of outline it in some of your responses, but if we achieve open interface and widespread OpenRAN deployment, what opportunity?
Jessica, you're on mute.
Yeah.
Oh, apologies. I was like, thank you very much for highlighting that. Sorry. Yeah, so how do you see OpenRAN and achieving open interface in the RAN, sort of opening up other technologies like mobile edge compute and network automation? I know we've already touched on it, but how do we sort of square the circle in that?
I think there's an easy.
Alfonso, why don't you go first this time?
Yes.
Actually, it's a good idea, Alfonso.
Sorry, and here, I mean, this is clear, Jessica. I mean, as an infrastructure operator, everything will change or should change with RAN. Okay, so open interfaces will probably, surely mean different concepts at site level, freeing space, and also connected with the values of the technology, providing paving the way, let's say, for the adoption of edge computing, clearly. I mean, so we all know the concepts that the 5G paradigm, let's say, contains, the massive MIMO, the radio part, but also the edge computing for the low latency and their core. We all know the concepts, okay? But with OpenRAN, there's clearly a value which automatically is brought into the sites, into the telecom network. And this is also an important part, the passive infrastructure, because we will need to provide services with all this new ecosystem from the same sites and new sites to be developed. Urban furniture, we're also working on that. I mean, this small cells, indoor, everything will be possible. Edge computing is clearly something, in our view as Cellnex, that should be fostered by OpenRAN and similar agreements at industry level. Okay, and we are, working with all these new initiatives with an eye on the value we can provide. Okay, and the value as infrastructure operator goes beyond the pure space, goes towards the shared investment as well. Because when you open the interfaces, you can work with different vendors. Also, sharing equipment among operators is easier, okay? Because they don't play only with one or two vendors, and this makes all decisions about sharing things easier. And there's an additional value there, the value that us, the neutral hosts, can bring into the equation. Edge computing in our vision, is clearly value number one to be got from OpenRAN.
Stefano, Frederic, to add?
Well, I think if I can pick one of the technologies that will clearly represent opportunities, certainly on the edge, as Alfonso was also mentioning, having very small footprint, CU, rigs, etc., that can be very easily really deployed on different edge or cloud locations will be a big element into it. And we see already today the small foot allowing to use the RAN as another application on even universal CPE kind of platforms. After SD-WAN or firewalls, etc., we see RAN application as being maybe the next application that is being asked for, up to even universal CPE, if you consider that also as sort of edge platforms. So that's interesting to see unlocked. And secondly, it's about the intelligence and the automation, as you were saying in your question, opening up the data in an open RAN, feeding the rig, feeding the XApps, for RAN optimization as such, but much broader than that for non-real-time applications, bringing in data from different elements will certainly fuel new ideas and innovation there. And some of them we might know, like energy efficiency, some of them to be discovered in an open ecosystem that will foster innovation.
Great, thank you. I'm going to move on to the next question in the essence of time, because we've got lots of questions coming in the Q&A, so I want to leave a bit of time to cover some of those off. But in the feedback that our audience gave, we looked at timelines that Joe introduced at the beginning, how long it will take to scale and get adoption, particularly in the UK. But I'm keen to hear from our panel members about what you think will hold the adoption of OpenRAN back.
Who wants to go first?
We are deeply involved. Let me just very quickly. We are we are already involved in deployment in the UK. I think there's been publicly advertised by some of the operators. I think it is mainly about incentive to operator to think in a different way. They the mindset, and they need to get over that mindset. Keep in mind that Frederic has been mentioning before virtual since 2000, and I think some of the initiatives like Sonic were missing in that space. That's why it probably took a long time for operator really to understand the value. And in fact, it actually happened once someone else has understood the value, like people like Google and so on. So once again, I understood how the mindset needs to be different. So the blockers, I think, is simply a mindset. As far as maturity, as I said, the technology is now there. I just want to add, most of the people who developed this technology, they're not just brand new people who just have no clue what they're doing. They are people who've been in the industry, and they have been maybe developing radio for some of the traditional vendors. So, it's really about use cases where we're gonna there, and 5G, as every new technology, as a new generation, it's about how we're gonna use it. There is a lot of vibe, much more than in 4G, which really 4G was more about more speed and more capacity. And the 5G with the low latency, and there's a lot of interest in the industrial spaces and so on. So I do believe that private networks will go into it very fast. We have seen it across Europe, across the world, but operators are set to follow very quickly. As I said, it's just a mindset, and as a mindset, once someone starts, then the others will follow very quickly. This is what I have seen everywhere in any time.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else got any other thoughts to add about what's going to hold adoption back, apart from changing the mindset of operators?
I think, Jessica, I know that the UK is now in a very particular situation, which should be very positive to Sonic and OpenRAN in general. And there's a mix of things. I mean, first, the post-Brexit. Second, the post-pandemic. Third, private networks. It's not that easy in other countries to have access to a spectrum for deploying private networks. It's not in Spain, it's not in Italy. maybe it's easier in France, but it's clearly easier in the UK. So, for example, something I can share with you, we have been awarded inside the West of England Combined Authority, which with one of the DCMS 5G Create projects. This is all about private networks. No MNOs are involved here. It will be deployed around Bristol area, okay? And we are responsible for the deployment of the LTE network, providing the use cases. And this will be OpenRAN. It will have an OpenRAN concept, okay? So we are starting to play with this towards the private networks to be deployed within the enterprise market, let's say. There's also another element which is clear to all of us, and this is Huawei ban. So the operators, and I perfectly understand that, are sometimes slow in making decisions affecting all the network. Lots of new, potentially new vendors, new spare parts, maintenance is more complicated. It's not easy to make this decision, we all know, okay? I think that probably with the Huawei ban, everything is changing in terms of the plans for the radio, and we are, having these discussions with the operators for our existing sites now in the UK. All the 5G rollout was not stopped, but it's being rethought because they need to ally with other vendors and changing their plans. So also probably the right moment for speaking about this, speaking about disruption. It's the time they are replanning and re-elaborating their rollout plans. So I think we have the right mix of circumstances for us to try and have a successful introduction of OpenRAN initiatives in the market.
Okay, thank you. And Frederick, do you have anything to add to
yeah, maybe two quick ones to maybe complement to what Alfonso and Stefano were saying. I think still one of the barriers is certainly a skill mix that is required in the OpenRAN environment. We like to see it in three different areas. You know, the RAN expertise is there. I agree with Stefano there. It's people coming from the industry that is developing these technologies. So the know-how of the RAN is there. But I think moving that to cloud environments and adding on top of that the automation, the AI skills, etc., are a mix of skills that I think in our industry as a whole still needs to expand and grow from the end user perspective or the integrator perspective, as well as the vendor perspective. So I think that's still something to keep in mind. And secondly, being a smaller company, I would certainly point to the fact that that investments have not always been easy in the telecom space. We see improvements on that in the context of programs that are being tracked and being merged also in Europe, where also the UK should benefit from that. There is more traction there for getting more vendors on board of these kind of technologies and development, which in telecom has not been easy over the last decade, at least I would say. So that would certainly help, and we're getting there. I would say there is certainly improvement.
Great, thank you very much. We've got quite a few questions. I'm going to try to ask some of them and invite Joe, Simon and Dritten back in, because some of the questions are directed at them. I'll start with one for Dritten that's come in through the Q&A. How much work has been performed so far in analysing the ORAN Alliance specifications, and has this covered the published and working group drafts?
Okay, yeah, thanks, Howard. To be direct, we until now we have been focusing as to what has sorry, we just lost your screen just for a second, and it felt like speaking to a matrix situation.
I'm still here.
So Howard, yes, exactly. So Howard, until now we have been focusing on building the facility, and we have moved with a breaknecking speeds. But at the same time, we have been looking during this process at the status of the specification, with a view to set up the experimentation post-launch. So from May onwards. At the same time, and this is very, very important because it is at the core of several questions that people have asked. We will be building the facility in order to run technical engagement with the community for technology development. So some of these things, and we would prefer that we become the conveners. It is not a project that we will allocate 3 people from Ofcom and 2 people from Digital Catapult that will be looking only specifically at this and come back with a report. We certainly intend to do that, but the primary focus of Sonic will be if we can create a community and working groups coming together through the testing to effectively look at those specifications, not only when the standards are finished, but also whilst they are being developed, and to try to leverage Sonic to create that capability and that engagement in the UK, Howard. So pretty much something that we are currently consulting on how to take that forward with you. You
Great.
being not just Howard, but more broadly. Howard did it
more directly on that question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
you. So if I may, just to say that in addition, we are at Ofcom doing some very direct analysis of the detail of the standards, not only from ORAN Alliance but also adjacent standards bodies, both in terms of the published specs, but also working with vendors who are up close and personal with the ongoing evolutions of those specs in practice and the challenges they're facing in implementing them, and clearly, much more importantly than having good specs is having true interoperability. And I think a lot of us who've been involved in previous initiatives for open mobile networks, which have very frankly failed, they haven't failed for a lack of specification. There are other barriers along the way, and that's really where Sonic is focused. Thanks.
Another one for you, Simon, actually. So the Telecoms Infra project has piloted an independent multi-vendor system release validation process for the OpenRAN ecosystem to fulfill the role that traditional vendors always performed in their goods out testing of full RAN system releases. Will Sonic play a role to host an SRV process for the UK market or even for a wider market?
Yeah, so we're very plugged in with TIP and coordinating with them on cross-links. We're very aware of TIP's work on sort of a solution group approach where they're bringing together sort of a mix of vendors to provide end-to-end solutions to make that easy. It's very complementary with Sonic, and we'll be looking at closer collaboration over time where appropriate. I mean, one thing I wanted to say, though, is partly in relation to other questions as well, is Sonic isn't attempting to substitute or replace what operators are doing in integrating vendors into their networks or selecting them. Instead, it's smoothing the process, particularly at the earlier stages. As a couple of the questions have said, it's quite hard for new innovators to actually put their solutions into operators' networks. That's not because the operators are resistant to having great new technologies in their networks, but they need them to work with their existing networks. And in the past, that's meant they've had to direct those innovators to their existing vendors, and understandably that that isn't always what warmly received and can act as a blocker or a gatekeeper into bringing those technologies in. Operators have strongly supported open initiatives in the past and the current set of those initiatives, but through the disaggregation and the open interfaces, there's a more direct route for the providers of individual subsystems that are best agreed into operator networks, and that's the bit that Sonic is there to facilitate.
Great, thank you. I haven't got a lot of time left, but I want to ask this one. It's been directed at Dritten, others may jump in. Can a third party connect up their own RAN, e.g. to test in a rural area? Really interesting question and viewpoint.
It's like all of the kind of the test beds. So fundamentally, the answer is both yes and no, because it comes down to the detail in the same way that Simon just mentioned for the mobile network operator. So if that means it comes down to the detail, if that means effectively having a remote connection to a network operations center, yes, of course, we have the capability and the capacity to do that. If that extends in the same way that we are doing in Sonic, where we have, when there is a specific test in a rural area with DUs and RUs, but they will need to be controlled by a centralized unit further away. So a split data center operation, to put it in a very crude terms. that again, it's possible. So, but the question is, it's not that this is a testbed that can be extended in other places. What we are preferring and what we are building about, because it is part of the overlay of testing and instrumentation, is to build representative networks in which people can take their products during the development stage in pre-qualification stages, so that they can test it in a rural environment, in an urban environment, and in an indoor environment. At the moment, we don't have plans immediately for a rural environment, but it is part of the consultation with the industry if that is something that we would want to do. We are very aware that there is a lot of tests happening already in the rural space, but happy to consider how we can help and expand in that space as well.
Okay, excellent. I think I'm going to squeeze in one more of the questions because there has been so many, and then we'll be wrapping up. Is there a priority use case? For example, small cells in building, including neutral host as an early opportunity, that external wide area macro cell?
Shall I start with that one? So no, there isn't. But I think, you know, there are some clear priorities that are sort of, you know, clear in the marketplace that you know, that are fairly obvious. But I think we're in a situation here where you know, I'm seeing it today, in fact, you know, I think with something like Sonic, when you set up something like this, you can be a victim of your own success. There's huge appetite to do all sorts of things. And so what we're trying to do is construct some input from the stakeholder landscape through governance and engagement and all sorts of things, which actually make sure that we're clear that any sort of, you know, where we spend our limited resources, we make sure they're kind of maximum interest and maximum benefit. We're very keen to do some, you know, we've got plans already to do indoor deployments, so we will be looking at some of those aspects. We are very keen also to do something similar at scale outdoors to cover both of those. But beyond those, I think it's going to be sort of directed by the degree of interest, priority, you know, what we hear from stakeholders really, and we need to set up the approaches by which we can hear those kinds of voices to steer the resources we've got with Sonic.
Excellent, thank you, Joe. I'm going to wrap up because we're almost at time, but thank you so much to all the speakers and all the attendees. It's been really interesting to kind of hear more detail about Sonic and the discussion that we've had around it. I think it's been clear from what everybody has said today that, you know, there is an opportunity to get involved for Sonic. It's for everyone, and being able to sort of co-create and shape the future of the program of work and the needs of the market that Sonic can fulfill is absolutely paramount to the program's success moving forward. So yes, thank you very much. If you want to know more, want to get in touch with any of the team or members, then please do so via the Digital Catapult website. I'll not read out the URL that may pop on the screen in a minute, but it has been put into the chat box if you've still got time to take a look there. But you should find everything you need to get involved and ask questions or take part via the Digital Catapult website. So thank you very much, everybody. And enjoy your days.